So I went to college at the Catholic University of America, which meant I spent a lot of time at the Basilica of the Shrine next door. And I used to like going to pray there. I used to especially like going to pray in some of the smaller side chapels, but I didn't tend to pray in the huge main nave, mainly because of this huge icon mosaic of Christ in Majesty at the end of the nave. If you've seen it, it's probably one of, according to the website now, maybe the largest mosaic of Christ in the world. We irreverently refer to it as angry buff white Jesus. Christ in majesty, looking at you, not happy. We're often, I think, rightly hesitant to use that imagery of Jesus as powerful, or Jesus as a victor, or Jesus as triumphing, in part because of how often that imagery has been used by Christians, past and present, to trample down others, especially to trample down the vulnerable. And yet, there may be something important, even something comforting for us today in today's readings, in envisioning Christ as a victor, particularly if we attend to the distinctive way that Jesus uses power and the model, therefore, that he gives of how to use power without abusing power. In our first reading today, we find tons of imagery about Christ conquering, about Christ being the victor, and about Christ being the fullness of God. Our text reads, "For in him dwells the fullness of the deity bodily, and you share in this fullness in him who is the head of every principality and power." Now, what's a principality or a power? The New Testament uses these terms as shorthand to refer to all of the spiritual forces that are opposed to God. And sometimes they use personified terms that sound a lot like fallen angels or demons. But we might also think of that term as the very concrete and powerful phenomena of our world, especially phenomenon of injustice, of inequality in our world, all the things that hinder people's full flourishing. Um, Colossians names these the principalities and powers. If we were writing it today, we might call them the systems and the structures that are blocking or hindering the reign of God. Today's reading then makes two major claims in that sentence. First, that Christ, through his life and especially through his death on the cross, has defeated, and notice that victory language, has defeated all of the principalities and powers, the systems and structures that are opposed to God. The end of the reading even uses an image that would have been familiar to anybody in the ancient Roman Empire, the image of a triumph, in which the victor parades into the city with all of the people he's conquered being led in chains behind them. So our text reads that, despoiling the principalities and the powers, Christ made a public spectacle of them, leading them away in triumph by the power of the cross. Now, it's a triumph in the cross. It's a triumph that looks like a defeat, this death by which death was defeated. And this text emphasizes that not just as an act of love for us, but also a kind of setting right of the entire world, in which Christ wins the victory over death, over injustice, over sin, over everything that threatens human flourishing, everything that threatens the goodness of creation. And so that's a kind of victory that we might be able to get behind. And then think of the second part of that sentence. And you share in this fullness in him, who is the head of every principality and power. You, us. Now that could be a great comfort to us, I think, when the powers and the principalities, the systems and the structures seem to have so much abusive power in our world, in our country, in our city. Our knowledge of Christ's victory and our share in the fullness of that victory through our baptism might help us to be unafraid of the powers up to and including death, when we believe by faith that Christ has already conquered them. That faith leads us to continue working to implement that right order. But to do that well, this is the key point, to keep that language of conquering, returning to the language of crusading. To do that well, we need to do so in a Christ-like way. That is, in a cruciform, a cross-shaped way, through acts of self-giving love that help to dissipate the violence of the powers of this world, rather than acts of violence that continue to contribute to it. That's hard to do. And our lives of discipleship are, at least in my experience, a continuing process of learning and unlearning and relearning how to do that skillfully. But this week, as we prepare to celebrate the Feast of the Holy Cross this coming Sunday, we might take comfort in the knowledge that even if there's still work to be done to continue implementing the victory, Christ has already defeated the powers and the systems that threaten the flourishing of our world. Our task, our small task as members of the church, as the baptized who are participate in that victory, is to continue to make it real through our own small cruciform actions of love, of self-giving, and even suffering along with Christ in order to make the world a place that is more truly free.